I kind of felt like this opportunity for Doughp to be a lighthouse for people who needed to talk, who wanted to reach out about these topics that otherwise society was kind of like shoving down, or you had to find secret pockets to discuss these things. And I felt like we're all going through it. Somebody we know or ourselves is going through something with mental health or addiction recovery. And that's why I formed Doughp for Hope.
Welcome to Journeys Through Change, a podcast that inspires women to let go of the fear and say yes to possibility. I'm your host, Noelle Van, an author, creator, and empowerment coach who spent years in corporate America helping innovators and leaders ride the waves of change with ease and grace. I now work with women to step into change and unleash the power they have to create a life they love. Whether you're contemplating a change in your career, relationship, health, lifestyle, or anything in between, nothing's off the table. I'll be offering up simple insights to help you manage the ups and downs of change and sharing interviews with successful women who took a leap of faith to create the life they knew they were meant to live, sharing their wisdom, advice, and all the juicy lessons they learned along the way. So get cozy in your favorite comfy chair and let's get started. For any of us who have experienced a pivotal moment in our past where we made a decision that over time proved to be of greater significance than we ever thought possible, we understand what true transformation feels like. Kelsey Moreira's moment was on September 14th, 2015, when she began her sober journey. This pivotal decision was one that would ignite Kelsey's commitment to personal growth and throw her into the deep end of entrepreneurship, building a cookie dough company with the sole purpose of curating moments of self-love while reducing social stigmas around mental health and addiction recovery. In early sobriety, she found her calm in baking. She had moved to San Francisco, and after a failed attempt at veganism, she loved butter too much, but found a great substitute for raw eggs. And she began experimenting with one of her favorites, cookie dough, and developed a simply irresistible recipe you can enjoy raw or baked. From there, her company Doughp was born. Kelsey began by setting up shop in a food truck park, and sales immediately took off. She soon began catering events, which would lead her to her first store opening in San Francisco's Pier 39. Next came her first appearance on ABC's hit show Shark Tank and the opening of her flagship store on the Las Vegas Strip. Doughp had officially taken off, but would change shape post-pandemic, leaving her storefronts to pursue e-commerce and grocery stores. Today, you'll find Doughp in more than 2,300 retail locations nationwide and a staggering $15 million in lifetime sales. Best of all, Doughp is having a positive impact along the way. Kelsey started the Doughp for Hope initiative in 2018 to break the stigma around mental health and addiction recovery, donating a portion of every purchase to the recovery nonprofit she recovers. In 2019, Kelsey married her husband, Israel, who is now CEO of Doughp, and in 2020 was named Forbes 30 Under 30. They welcomed their sweet baby girl, Olivia, this past October, and in addition to motherhood, she has started Moreira Consulting, bringing her deep business knowledge, giving spirit, and dedication to service to other entrepreneurs, helping them make their dreams a reality by taking life-changing leaps of their own. Kelsey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
So Kelsey, I often start at the pivotal moment. I want people to kind of jump into that, but I feel like there's a bit more to your story prior to kind of your sobriety date. And I thought maybe you could bring us back to that to kind of give us a little bit more background.
I was born in Dallas and raised in California. I have two parents who really, really loved me and tried their best, but they weren't meant for each other. So they got divorced at a pretty young age for me. I was 6 years old when they split. And I think that's what really started my life going down some different paths where the consistency was, not there in my life at a young age. I had one experience at one household and a very different experience at another household. Sort of chaos ruled in one and order reigned in the other. And that's a lot for a kid to try to go through, bouncing back and forth. And I found myself from a really early age leaning on achievements and accomplishments to get the attention from my parents and to get the atta girls and, the pat on the back. And as I went into my school years, like that intensity on doing well and being perfect went to really extreme levels. I was really, really hard on myself as a kid in school. Like I was the girl crying if I got a B on a test. And I had so much anxiety. I would sometimes have to take tests in a separate room because I would have panic attacks in the classroom. And as I got into high school years and got exposure to all the different crowds and groups you could lean into, and I think much influenced by pop culture and movies and TV and what I was seeing that was cool, I started leaning into the party scene and to drinking. First time I drank, I was 14 years old and I remember I drank till I blacked out that very first time. And I remember feeling like it was the first time I didn't have to be on. I didn't have to be perfect and all put together. I could just pretend to be carefree like all the other kids. And alcohol turned into a 10-year relationship for me, that was some escape from the perfection and the stress of my day-to-day life. Those stresses increased a little bit with an amazing opportunity, though very stressful. When I was 16 years old, got the chance to go be an intern at Intel. And I was an intern part-time through every school year and full-time every summer from 16 years old on. Also 10-year career that wound up happening with Intel. So it was this contrast for my life of like how put together and perfect it was looking with the grades and the balancing and the work and the school and even a relationship. All these things like looked great on the outside, but it was sort of this question of like, who is Kelsey? What do I really like to do? What are my actual hobbies? Because in large part, it was drinking and going to bars. And, if I had anyone come to visit me, it was like all I could do was show them around my favorite breweries. And all we did was drink. And the negative outcomes of it just kept piling up over the years. I was always the one getting like carried out of the party or throwing up on somebody. The stories go on of just like really negative consequences. And in the end, long relationship that I had saw a lot of those like negative impacts from the drinking over the years. And is September 14th of 2015 that you mentioned, that night before I finally made the choice to get sober, I was in Barcelona on a work trip. And work trips were always the worst for me because it was kind of where I knew I could let loose and nobody around you knows you have a problem with alcohol. You can just go for it and be free. And everyone else is also ready to kick back and relax.
Well, and you're in Barcelona, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'd gotten there earlier in the morning and started drinking with the welcome bottle of wine that Marriott so kindly gave me. Crack of dawn in the morning, basically. Had traveled all day and started drinking then. And unfortunately continued to drink and came to after going out with coworkers and all this at like 3:30 in the morning. I was in a stranger's apartment, had no idea how I'd gotten there or who this person was. I'd lost all my belongings again. And I had ultimately cheated on my partner of 4 years at the time. And in that morning, collecting my life and belongings and things and making my way back to the hotel, I just remember so clearly thinking I was absolutely done feeling like this. I was so tired of apologizing for things I barely remember doing and had to go back and have that phone call with that boyfriend at the time to tell him what had happened and blew up that relationship. And all of it just came into such clarity that morning that I would never be able to have a healthy relationship with myself or with anyone else if I kept drinking.
It's so interesting the way that you describe it, because I feel like any of us that have gotten sober, we've all come to it in our own way, right? We've all taken our own path to get to that place. But it feels like the clarity that you see, I mean, I've had similar clarity, and I say this to some people that are like, wow, I don't know. I feel like it just kind of happened and I just eventually had to. But that super, super clear feeling, it just like, I viscerally felt that when you said it, because it's that feeling of like, no more. When you literally are like, I don't know what this is supposed to look like, but I am giving it up. And it's all this culmination, right, of coming to that moment. Just looking back retrospectively, if you think about how you got to that place, it sounds like you were really clear. At that point, it was just like, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this.
I felt like you can only run up against, into the wall so many times. And I'd gone through, the ultimatum in the past with the boyfriend in particular, where he said, you need to get sober or else another bad incident had happened. And, I was able to get sober for 6 months. And this was when I was 21. And at the end of those 6 months, I still have the journal entry where I was writing saying what a great 6 months it had been and how excited I was to be able to drink again. And like, now it's going to be so great that I'm going to be able to control myself and like monitor my drinks. And within 3 weeks, I was blacking out again. And I think this time was just kind of like I really am crazy if I keep saying that this can be any different with alcohol in my life. And it's like that one common denominator that I needed to get out. And, proof was in the pudding. I've got lots of alcoholism in my family. And I think that just kind of struck a chord of like, I can keep trying. I can keep going this path and wait until I, get the DUI or lose the job. What else do I want to lose? And I decided I was done losing. I was ready to win.
It is like the proverbial monkey off your back. It is such a constant constant thought process of like, I'm going to stop.
Or when you're drinking, it's exhausting. Like no one else thinks about drinking as much as people who struggle with drinking. Like we are just an uncomfortable amount of thinking about when the next one is, or is it too soon? Should I ask for another one? Does anyone else want another one? Are they going to keep drinking because I want to keep drinking? Or like, no,
Yes.
like it's cuckoo town in my head. And so it's like, this is not normal. We gotta make a change.
I remember going through that thought process too of like, when can I stop so that I can actually get up and go to work tomorrow? Like, when do I need to stop at night? For some reason, I had some sort of calculation of like what that would look like. Okay, so this pivotal moment happens to you. I know you were a baker. You had always been a baker, right?
Yeah, I always loved to bake. Huge sweet tooth and like loved to bake as a kid for sure. You know, when I first got sober, like I said, that hunting for like, who is Kelsey and what do I like to do? Because I truly had lost sight of so much of it. I wasn't running anymore, wasn't doing yoga, wasn't any practices that I could enjoy. I wasn't doing any of that yet. And things I had done, you know, in my earlier years, like teen years and stuff like running and baking as a kid, just totally lost sight of it. So sobriety was like a clean slate to create myself. In fact, in Barcelona, that first day I was sober, I was there a few days before the conference started. So I went out in the city to explore and sightsee. And I found a magnet that said something like, life isn't about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself. And it's so interesting that really from that day, I have just like continued to go on to create who Kelsey is. So yeah, so I got back in the kitchen baking and I was doing everything. I was like cookies, cakes, cupcakes, brownies, you name it. If it has sugar, I'll make it. Like I was having such a blast. And I was also cooking a lot as well. And so at the time I'd ventured into the world of veganism and tried to try my hand at it. What I really loved that stuck with me was from vegan baking. I just ended up not having eggs on hand very often, but I started using butter again. And this great egg substitute that I knew using flaxseed was so great in everything, pancakes, even all sorts of stuff. So not having eggs was no hindrance to me. I could make pretty much any recipe, just make it with my egg substitute. And I realized pretty quickly when I was making my cookie dough, like, oh, I always ate the cookie dough, even when there was eggs in it too. But now I was like, oh man, I can actively like save a bowl of this and snack on it through the week and bake some cookies when I want. What a cool concept that is. So I secretly knew this and was enjoying this for a little while before making my way down to San Francisco for a job change inside of Intel. And I think that's where it all sort of coalesced, this like excitement being in the Bay Area with so many other people who are just going after their dreams and so excited about their new startup they joined or the new one they founded, or, you know, you just have that energy. And I hadn't been around that yet. And I was definitely a moment of like, I want that. Like, this looks fun. I think I could have my own thing. I always felt like my energy and work ethic and all this I was just so much faster than Intel could even run, you know, like they're a big boat. It's a big corporation. And living inside the marketing box of, you know, you can only use this shade of blue and like not too many exclamation marks and, you know, you name it. So creating my own brand was also a fun opportunity to let my like marketing creative brain really get some fun. And so yeah, put it all together and realize this cookie dough thing could be my thing. Like people love cookie dough, but we all sneak it one bite at a time. Like what if you could enjoy a whole bowl of it? So there I went.
So you were at this was the food truck park that you started with. You had your wagon, right? You had the wagon with you, which I love that. I love that. I remember that photo.
Early days of Doughp. When I first was getting started, I found a commercial kitchen in Oakland who could take me in, and they had like a 6-month waiting list. But I told her like, I really need to start. I'm so excited, and like, here's what I'm going to make, and just totally sold her. And she let me jump the line to get started ahead of everyone, which was amazing because it's hard to find space there in the Bay. But I was really determined to start on this particular date because it was the first day of my sabbatical with Intel. So I was getting 2 months off, I think 10 weeks in total. I was taking a little vacation as well. 10 weeks in total for sabbatical. And I had planned a whole like Southeast Asia backpacking trip that I was going to be going on. And when I got the idea for Doughp a few months before in February of that year, I canceled the whole trip and decided that I would use a sabbatical to start this company and see if it could take off. So I found the commercial kitchen. I found a wood shop in Soma, a neighborhood of San Francisco, who could build me a cart to sell out of, like something that could break down into a vehicle because I knew I need to use Lyft and Ubers to get around to events. So I had these like 2 metal carts that came together and these wood paneling things that made it look really cool on the outside and made this like cookie dough chest for the top. to be able to scoop out of. And the whole thing, like it's very nostalgic for me to think back about this, this cart because we went through a lot together. And then the wagon. So I had a wagon to go and get all my ingredients at like the cash and carry that they had in San Francisco, a restaurant supply store, made the cookie dough I needed and wagoned it back to my apartment. And that's where I would load up for my events. So I had my very first day, just went rogue and took the cart and my cookie dough, about 100 pounds, to Dolores Park.
Oh,
and
God.
we sold out in 3 hours. So and we, as my mom, my stepdad, a friend of mine, and myself.
I love that. They helped.
Yes, they helped. Yeah, original helpers there. But yeah, sold out in 3 hours. And it was that proving point of like, okay, people really like this. They're willing to pay for it. Like they think it's an interesting concept, and just had those, yes, like thumbs up check marks to go to that next step and take it a little further. So then I started a food truck park. I'd reached out to them that next day saying like, hi, I've got a cookie dough company. And they were like, amazing concept. Like, when can you start? So then I'm like, how to sell at a food truck park, like what license is needed to, all the things you just totally figured out as you go. And yeah, I did exactly that. I started the food truck park, catering, all these pop-ups, and then got the opportunity to open up Pier 39, the storefront sort of vision. And yeah.
And that came from what? That came from somebody just kind of coming. Didn't you have somebody that had seen what you were doing and they said that there was an opening there? Or how did that happen? The Pier 39?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pier 39 had reached out saying like, we've got a space available, would you be interested?
Nice.
We've been hearing about your concept and think it would do really well here. And so, yeah, I needed $100,000 to buy and renovate the space out from the cupcake cafe that it had been previously. And literally, I think it was like the week before or 2 weeks before, an angel investor in San Francisco had reached out to me saying he'd been hearing about Doughp and was wondering if I was looking for any investment. So the stars just kept aligning. This was certainly like early sobriety, just kept feeling like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing because like the world just keeps lining up the right support at the right time for you. And that's just continued to be true as the years went on.
As we all know, change is inevitable. Sometimes it comes out of nowhere, leaving us to pick up the pieces and navigate our way through the unknown. Other times it's a decision we've made to step into a bigger version of ourselves or find more joy or fulfillment in our lives. Day by Day book was designed to help you face the discomfort of those shifts in life that are pushing you to that next level of growth and learning. It's a guided journal with a simple tracking system to manage your daily well-being during challenging times, setting you up for success no matter what life throws your way. Join our community of over 15,000 changemakers and get started on your daybook journey today. The time is now to step into change to create a life you love. To get your Day by Day book, go to livedaybyday.com. So then you get this Shark Tank opportunity, which is another one of those. I mean, Didn't you say you went to, it was out of 40,000 people or something?
Yeah, they have something like 40,000 apply and every season. And there's 120 that get filmed for each season. So the odds are extremely slim. And so much of it is done on like a shoulder tapping basis. Like they kind of know the brands that they want to reach out to come on. But I went through an open casting call. I just sat on a curb outside this facility in San Francisco that was having the casting call with like 500 other people that day. I was the only one from that whole casting call to actually make it on the show that season too.
Oh my God. We haven't met, I mean, we've mentioned this in the intro, but we haven't mentioned this in how you're describing it. Like when you think of the impetus for doing all of this and what drove you, obviously you're starting anew, right? This was something that was like, you're stepping into something new, but you also were doing it to support, to give back. And to, I mean, you didn't probably have that lined up until later, but you were always an advocate for mental health. You were always, so it's like, it's almost that burning desire behind everything too, that I think helps to fuel just the universe saying, yes, yes, yes. It just keeps throwing things your way. So then you start this flagship store. How did the Las Vegas idea come?
Well, we certainly had the storefront expansion concept back then of like, let's keep going with additional storefronts, like franchising maybe in our future. And, going on Shark Tank got lots of eyeballs interested in franchising. So it felt like it was important to open up another corporate store and be able to show what it could look like, to have another store for Doughp. And I picked Vegas because I thought, one, we sell really well on tourist locations. It's a like indulgent treat, something fun, unique to have while you're on vacation. So targeting another big tourist opportunity was part of that. But I also thought like how interesting we had started the Dope for Hope initiative at that time to talk about mental health and addiction recovery. And I thought, how fun is this to put like a booze-free cookie dough bar on the strip? And we made it look like a bar. We had bottles filled with like toppings and sprinkles and chocolate chips and stuff up top. And it was a, kind of like Cold Stone concept for cookie dough. So you got to pick which toppings you wanted. We'd mix it in. So I just had a lot of fun bringing our message to that audience. Like we had a whole wall dedicated to the Dope for Hope stuff. And back then we had one flavor where 100% of the proceeds were donated to a nonprofit that customers would vote for. So when they bought, they'd get a little ticket and they could go vote for which nonprofit they wanted to receive the funds. And yeah, so I just thought Vegas would be a really fun place for that.
You were in Vegas for how many years?
The craziest thing was it was about our 1 year, like the day before our 1 year anniversary that COVID hit and it was shut down. The stores were closed for COVID's quarantine. So we only got 1 year out of that store, and then insanely given like 24 hours notice that the store was going to be no longer accessible because it was part of a casino. We were in one of the casinos in Miracle Mile Shop. So that was going to be, closed and boarded up, and like the whole strip would be. So we wouldn't even have access to the facility. And while our store was, of course, like going to see a huge hit in sales getting shut down, our online business had started going through the roof. We would gone from like 30 boxes a month in November of 19 to 3,000 a week in April of 2020.
Whoa.
So we were well on our way there by the time mid-March happened and the shutdown was coming. And we were producing, packing, and fulfilling orders through graveyard shifts at our store. So to have it shut down was like, how are we going to keep serving our e-commerce business? And within those 24 hours we were given, we got a U-Haul to come and pick everything up. And we found a donut shop who was willing to give us their facility since they were closing down in Vegas, and continue to pack and produce our orders. And we didn't skip a beat. We made orders go out that next morning. Pretty crazy.
I think there's a lot of like serendipity to your story. Well, and you've described it too, right? Because there are certain milestones that things happened. Like, I feel like there is some serendipities that all kind of taken shape.
I was 2 years sober the day we had our grand opening at our first little kiosk. So right before Pier 39, we opened like a small 10 by 10 kiosk in a market hall. And that grand opening was on my 2 year sober birthday. And that's what started Dope for Hope. I had said, in honor of the founder's 2 year sober birthday, you'll get 20% off if you say it's dope to be sober at checkout. And that was the first time I'd shared sobriety, like with the public about, me being sober as the founder of Dope. And I got so many messages from people saying like, I'm 2 weeks sober. Do you know of any good meetings in the city? Or someone was like 13 years sober and said they'd never told anyone. And it was really cool to see me sharing it publicly. And I just thought, wow, like what a conversation we need to have. Like I kind of felt like this opportunity for Dope to be a lighthouse for people who needed to talk, who wanted to reach out about these topics that otherwise society was kind of like shoving down, or you had to find, secret pockets to discuss these things. And felt like we're all going through it. Somebody we know or ourselves is going through something with mental health or addiction recovery. And that's why I formed Dope for Hope. But then, yes, the second date alignment was my 3 years sobriety birthday was like the day before filming for Shark Tank in 2019.
You just can't make that up. Seriously. I feel like there's so much to that. But I think the thing that just as you described this, but also in knowing you for the amount of time that I've known you for, you have a really bright way of looking at sobriety. And I say that in a way of like, there's a lot of approaches that you can take with people that are newly sober. There's a lot of approaches you can take where people really resonate. People really resonate with your energy. And so this doesn't surprise, like when you talk about how you brought this product out into the world, you also like brought your spirit out into the world in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's not just about the cookie dough. And they know that. And that's what makes it so fun, which by the way, though, it is the most addictive thing in the world because I can say that from my own experience. So it's like, it's a really, really good product, but it also, there's this light about it. And there's this beacon that I think you bring out really, really well with what you do. And so it's like, you were just kind of made to, that's my own opinion. You were made to do what you're doing.
Thank you.
But we haven't gotten to all of it.
But wait, there's more.
But there's more. So, okay. So you're in Vegas. Do you move from Vegas before you got married? I know you got married in 2019, correct?
Yeah. We got married in 2019 in San Francisco still. And then the fall of 19, we had decided to close down the store in San Francisco. Obviously, this is before COVID, but the San Francisco store was just extremely high cost of doing business there, like staffing challenges. We'd been robbed a few times at the store.
Things
were just tough at that store towards late 19. And we decided it'd be better to close it, focus on building up e-commerce, and the potential of franchising at the time was still on the table. So it just made sense to close that down. And then we found ourselves living in a very overpriced apartment in San Francisco, thinking like, why are we living here and we're running a store in Vegas where like cost of living and doing business is so much better. So yes, so we made the shift out of the Bay Area at that time and moved to Las Vegas to be close to the store. And then, even with the store closing, like overseeing and setting up the supply chain that was needed to service what was now a very large e-commerce business, made sense to stay there for the time being until we finally made the move to Texas in 2021.
Got it. Okay. And so you get married between then, and then sweet Olivia comes along, 2023.
Yes.
That was just last October. Oh, she's such a sweetie. So she is what? How old is she now? Is she 6 months? She said.
Yeah, she's going to be 7 months in a few days. 7 months in a few days. So
where does the time go?
It's so fast. I cannot believe.
So motherhood, like give us a little bit of like, what are your thoughts on motherhood so far?
Well, it's an interesting journey because I was so career focused. Like Iz and I almost didn't get married because I was so like heads down running this business. We were in the same co-working office in San Francisco, and it took us like 6 months to actually have a conversation because we were just so both really busy in what we're doing, and I wasn't looking to date anyone. I was just going with it, and we finally get in touch. So the idea of having a child was, of course, something I really wanted. I always wanted to be a mom, but it just kind of felt like this. Maybe after Doughp, like we'll see what happens if I sell the company one day or something. Maybe I'll be able to do it then, but it just was not in my line of sight that there'd be a world where I could do it and have the business. But last year, with Iz coming in and, he moved into being CEO. So I would be chief inspiration officer and really get to focus my time on the areas I love, like the mission and marketing and just support in that way. It sort of started to look like maybe we could make this work. We could find a way, like people with crazier situations have children, and I think we can do this. So so we decided to have a baby, and man, you just can't prepare yourself for like the level of internal change and perspective shift that happens when a child comes into the world. I feel like I just have such a clear way of looking at my life and my priorities and what really matters, and being able to put yourself and your family first becomes a lot easier when there's like this little human who needs you. I felt like that was a clearer division for me than before. Truly, like my identity after getting sober was Doughp. Like I was Doughp and Doughp was me, and that's all I really could have told you. And it's funny because it took me getting sober to go figure out like the who is Kelsey, but it's like I almost lost myself again in these years, really devoting myself to this business. And in a lot of ways, the business became my new addiction. I had periods of time running Doughp that were really dark for me. I had gotten just way, way too stressed out, the hours, the intensity. And, I had a pretty full mental breakdown in, I guess it was 2022, summer of 2022 was really, really hard for me, and had a full like 7-day period. I had to like disconnect from the world, and except for my journal and my therapist, those were my only contact points.
Those are tried and trues. Yes.
But I really had to separate, and I really had a hard time finding me outside of Doughp. And it's really wonderful to feel this balance now of like, oh, there's so much more to me and life than just the company. And what plagued me as a child of feeling like my achievements are the only thing I have for myself, it's like that has lessened and softened as well. I don't feel like those are the only thing that define me anymore. So she's given me a lot of gifts.
I love that. Well, it almost adds dimension too, right? We all know that we're multidimensional people and human beings, because when you compartmentalize things which we all do, right? I think throughout our careers too, and in different stages of careers, you compartmentalize yourself to a certain extent, and then you have to kind of pull out of that. And having a baby is such a wonderful way of doing that, because not only are you giving to someone else, but you realize, wow, there's different facets to me that haven't even blossomed yet.
Yeah.
And as a mother, it's just every day's a gift, right? It's probably something new every day that you're learning about yourself and her as she's growing.
Someone told me before I had her while I was pregnant that like motherhood will teach you exactly what you need.
Oh, I love that.
And it's interesting because I felt like the control I've wanted to have over my life is one thing that like having a kid just blows up. You want to You want to know exactly when these certain things are happening. And, we're pretty lucky now that she's a pretty good sleeper and the schedule's pretty nice, but it's not perfect still. And Lord, in the beginning, when they're a newborn, it's like, good luck. Like you need to learn to just roll with it. And you have to let go of what you wanted the day to be like or how you wanted the timing to be. That was really hard for me. That was a huge learning curve and something that I desperately needed in my own life. So in my own mental health journey. So it's nice. Yeah. Parenthood kind of teaches you those things.
I mean, you have gone through a lot of change and you've got some more coming up, right? So you've got consulting. Now you're doing consulting. So is that something, do you feel like you've shifted gears in a good way? Does that feel positive to you?
Yeah, so positive. I think, what I do with Doughp is still really fun and awesome for me. I love that we still get to spread such a positive message and a product that people really love. But after so many years, that creative new part of my brain was not getting worked as much as I needed to,
Yes.
some totally new problem, new company, new thing to look at. And that wasn't getting worked as much. And what I love and what makes me feel so fulfilled is the people that I'm helping getting to work with you. It's so nice to see what I've learned and what I've gone through, the hard, expensive, painful, good and bad, all the things that have happened. I get to use it for someone else now to help them. And it's just such a purpose driven thing. It makes me feel like I have a lot of purpose to make it all worth something. Because it's really easy if times get hard in your own business and you're like, gosh, what was this for? Why did I go through all this? And I feel like consulting is a great answer for me. I'm like, this is why I went through it. I've gone through everything I've done so I would have the skills to help other entrepreneurs who are trying to follow in these footsteps and grow their own business. And yeah.
And I can say from experience, from working with you, it is a perfect fit for you because it is true. It's almost like, I don't know if at what points in times when you look back on your life and you go, what are these different steps that got me here? You've had these foundational pieces. I mean, having your own company, my God, that's like crash course in everything, right? You learned everything, from the beginning to the end, right? And bringing that to the table, I mean, I can say this from my own experience, having somebody like you who knows what all of those different facets, the good, the bad, the ugly, it's key component in what you're doing. So it's great that this is the next step for you. When you think about what's next for you, and I say this generally on purpose because it could be in any area of your life, what do you see coming next?
We'll have another baby, but not yet. so growing the family is certainly part of that. It's fun to see everything unfold in the way that it is right now because I think I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Starting to grow this consulting business is really exciting for me and so much potential. I'm hitting the cap already. I can't take on more clients. What a fun space to be that
Totally.
I get to think about how do I want this to grow in the future and to retain the time that I want with the baby. Because old Kelsey would have been like, yeah, let's jam. Let's do an 80-hour work week and take on all of it. But I totally have this no, this is what it needs to be. And that's okay. I think the other exciting piece for me in the future, continuing to keynote speak. I really love getting to speak and share my story. So it's a big part of it. And writing a book. I'm hoping to write a book about my life and journey. So a book or books. It's a long journey.
Yes.
So yeah, it's been enough years of people being like, you should really write a book. And I feel incentivized to help get my story out there and help some other people know that, the sobriety journey, the entrepreneur journey, the book should just be called You Can Do It because it just has all these different elements of what you can do.
So Kelsey, you have talked a little bit about journaling and I'm curious, I know you've gone through many, many twists and turns. What is kind of your practice as you're going through different changes in your life? Do you write a lot?
Yeah, I love to journal. So since I was little, it's actually my Nana that got me started on journaling from when I was 8 years old. So my Nana kept a journal for years and years and years. When she passed away, we had drawers of old journals to go through of hers. And I just always was fascinated with it. I thought, it was such a great way for me to go back now and remember her and see how she talked about, different events. So that only really reaffirmed my love of it. But yeah, from when I was 8 on, I always journaled. And I was always kind of a open format journaler, no prompts or guides or anything. I just fill in the pages and let my anxiety spiral me into a corner. So over the years, I've tried to rein this in, but journaling's always been a part of my practice. When I think about how I keep myself grounded or what keeps Kelsey, on the right track, it's journaling, meditation, therapy, calling a friend, and the exercise. And like, what of those things can I get done today or in this week? And I try to keep it easy on myself. It's, you set yourself up for failure for like, I need to do all 5 things every single day. But if I can just do some of those, it'll make me feel on track. So you are the best introduction, or addition, I should say, addition into my journaling practice, is like finding the day by day book.
That's nice to know.
You nailed it.
It's a different sort of take on journaling, I think. It's a
Yeah,
little bit more
like,
of an abbreviated way. Yeah.
it's like what I wish I had thought of in my open-ended ones. I could have been like, oh, let me like have this checklist, this system to say like, what am I doing to nourish myself today, to move, that part of it, to be able to check in is so nice. So yeah, the day book's the winner for me.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. I know I was going to say I've been a journaler for my whole life. Well, since I was in my teens, which I have to tell you, I burned a lot of journals along the way, but did a lot of free journaling. Like you said, just free writing, which I think just helps a ton. But I'm more concise, and I don't feel as guilty of not having to fill pages and pages and pages all the time.
Oh, you do that too? We all judge ourselves on like the length of our entry.
Completely.
Like, Kelsey, what are these 2 paragraphs? You can't come up with more?
Isn't that terrible? But yes.
So yeah, see, I think the day book's boosting my self-confidence is really what's happening.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Okay, so if you were to talk to yourself, what if you had yourself at 20 sit down in front of you? What would you tell her?
I just wish she knew that she was enough. She was enough. She didn't need all the other stuff or things or pats on the back. Yeah, I would have just said, you're enough. And dear God, put the alcohol down. Would have been an asterisk.
Girl, put the drink down.
It ain't gonna work. Save yourself.
Well, Kelsey, I loved having you on and being able to talk to you in this way, because I don't think we've gone into this depth together before. So I feel truly blessed to have been able to talk to you about this in more detail. And we're going to put all of Kelsey's links in the show notes so that you can get to know everything that she is up to. But Kelsey, thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And as I say, have a dope day.
All right, that's it for now. Until next time. Thanks for listening to the Journeys Through Change podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or really wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us and leave a review if you've enjoyed this episode. And share it with a friend or on social media to spread the good word, so more women like you can find us and join in on the fun. For more information on the podcast or Day by Day book, go to livedaybyday.com.